Good morning. Hello again. Well, I'm really excited to have a guest this morning, and I want to say, first off, thank you so much to our guest because we had to have a last-minute substitution. We were supposed to have a guest today who is from Malawi, who is coming to the United States to kind of do a tour of churches and universities and talk about some really cool work that's happening in East Africa, but his visa was denied and he was not able to come, which is a big bummer. So we'll hope to hear from him at some point in the future. But in every rainstorm, there's a silver lining, right, about that cloud. And I have had a person on a list of people that I have wanted to invite to come and have a chapel conversation. And I emailed this person first at the top of my list and said, is there any chance? And he got right back to me and said, yes, I can be there. So would you please give a super warm welcome. So excited for you to hear from Dr. Duke Bulanon today. Welcome him to the platform. Listen to that. Listen to that reception.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Bulanon, Duke, what would you like to be called while we're having this conversation?
You can call me John Wayne.
John Wayne.
You call me Duke.
Would you mind just telling us a little bit, just first, what you teach here at the university? And I'm sure several students have had you, but what do you teach and what's your area of specialty maybe within that discipline?
Before I answer that question, I just like to say that I came here in 2011, and it was my first time to come to a university that has chapel. And during that time, I really enjoyed coming to chapel, listening to Father Gene Shandorf, or, my background is Catholic, so I call him Father Gene. I really enjoyed coming to chapel to hear him talk. And, I come almost 3 times a week. And then suddenly that enjoyment, faded. And when you came here, that enjoyment came back.
Oh, wow.
So from my perspective, you are doing a good job. So can we give Grant a big round of applause?
Wow. That's honestly really, thank you so much. That's a huge compliment.
So to answer your question, I teach engineering, mechanical engineering.
Okay. And do you have a specialty within that field of mechanical engineering?
It's more on automation and robotics.
Okay.
Yeah, applied to agriculture.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you more about that later. But first, I would love for the students to get to know you maybe a little bit more. Tell us about your background. Where were you born? What was your family like growing up? Okay. And did you always have an interest in math and science and leading into engineering? But yeah, tell us a little bit about your growing up years.
So, I was born and raised in one of the 7,100 islands in the Philippines. It's the island called Cebu. And if you don't know, if you haven't studied world history, I think you have studied world history, Cebu plays a very important part in world history and in Christianity.
Okay.
So that is where Ferdinand Magellan, the first circumnavigator, landed.
Uh-huh.
He was supposed to go to the Spice Island, but he landed in my island.
Nice.
And that was in 1521, and that's the start of Christianity in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just celebrated our 500 years of Christianity in the Philippines, 2021.
Wow.
And during that time, he gave this image of the Holy Child Jesus to the Queen of Cebu. It's not the song from VeggieTales, by the way. I know you're familiar with it.
I will confess that was the first thing I thought of, yeah, when you said it.
It's a different one.
Yeah.
So he gave this image of the Holy Child, and that image is still there, and they built a church. And in Catholic churches in the Philippines, they have feast every year to celebrate the patron of that particular church.
Right.
And so when my wife and I were dating, we would always go to this church, the Holy Child Jesus Church. And since coming here in the United States, we haven't gone to the feast because it's always in January. So my wife and I started organizing, and we brought the feast here in St. Paul's. So, if you have a chance, come in January, third Saturday of January. We have a big feast to celebrate the image of the Holy Child Jesus.
Oh, that's awesome. So you were growing up in Cebu.
So I grew
On the
up in
island?
Cebu. My father was a mechanical engineer, and he had a construction business, working for the largest beer manufacturer in the Philippines. He would maintain their boilers, their water tanks, and my brothers also followed suit. And then my father passed away when I was 16 years old. So that gave me kind of an inspiration to become a mechanical engineer, not a sign from God or something. I just said, I just want to follow my dad.
Yeah.
And so I became a mechanical engineer.
What did that process look like? Did you study at a university in the Philippines, or
I
what did that
studied in
look
a
like?
university in the Philippines, and then after that, after I graduated, I worked for Timex. I don't know if you're familiar. If you go to Walmart, you will see these Timex
The
watches.
the watch company? Okay,
Yes. And my first job was to design the Iron Man watch. Iron Man was very popular. Timex made it really popular that time, so you can still buy Iron Man watch.
Yeah.
And I worked there for a year because I just didn't like going 8 to 5 and just designing watches all the time. And I visited my professor in my alma mater, and then he told me, do you want to go to Japan? I was young. I said, sure, why not? So I sent my application
To a company in Japan, or to
to further my study. I
Okay.
did, I thought I was done with school, but I'm already 51 years old. I'm still in school. But so I applied for a scholarship to go to Japan, and I went to Japan.
Wow.
Lived there for 8 years.
Where in Japan did you live?
I lived in Sendai. Sendai was one of the places, if you have remembered, that was hit by that tsunami. So that's one of the places. I just lived like an hour away where it was hit. And then I live in Iwate, and I live in Sapporo, not the Sapporo beer, but that's where the beer is made too.
Yeah, yeah.
So I live in those places.
So that's really fascinating. Going from the Philippines to Japan, were you comfortable with Japanese? Did you have a background speaking Japanese? Did you need to speak Japanese in order to go study in Japan? Imagine?
I don't know how to speak Japanese before I went to Japan, and I don't know the culture. Here's a very funny story. So when I arrived in Japan, it's like a 180-degree turn,
Yeah.
I arrived there, and I went to the decks of the university. And I saw this curried stuff, and I thought it was like big chunks of pork. So I got the rice. I like rice. Rice time, guys.
Man, you hit him with that rice time, and like 8 people in here went, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I tell them I'm a racist. No, I eat rice 3 times a day. So I'm a
Rice
racist.
time. Rice
Yeah.
time, baby.
Yes. So
Okay, so you're sorry. So you hit that rice.
I ate that rice, and I got these big chunks of pork. Started eating it. It turned out it's tofu.
Oh
See?
man,
See
that
your
was the
reactions?
disappointment here was heavy. Yeah, for you.
But my father and mother told me that you have to finish the food that you've taken.
Yep.
Every last bit of that grain of rice. So I ate the tofu.
Yeah. Did you ever come to like tofu in your 8 years in Japan?
I like tofu. Now, I love tofu. Every time I go to the Asian store, I buy the mabo tofu to recreate that
That
feeling,
experience?
that experience.
The experience of despair and disappointment, is that what you're saying?
However, that despair now is a joy for me.
Yeah, no, I love that. So you go to Japan to study, to further your studies. Was that when you began to really take a heavy interest in robotics and some of the aspect of that? What were you studying in Japan?
So, you can only connect the dots after, not before, right? When I went to Japan, one of the requirements for applying for the scholarship is you are writing an essay of what are you going to study in Japan. And I was doing something about solid waste management. So I got the scholarship for this particular university. I went to that university, and God really works in very mysterious ways. And why do I say that? It's because when I arrived there, they told me that the professor who was going to be my advisor went to another university, transferred to another university.
Yeah, that's bad news.
But my scholarship was tied to that university. So they told me, hey, all we have here is apple harvesting. I haven't heard about agricultural engineering in the Philippines. I haven't heard about harvesting, much more apple harvesting. I was already there. I have a stipend. My tuition is free. So I thought, this is a vacation in Japan. It's a paid vacation, right? So I said, yeah, let's do it. And 8 years later, I didn't know that my apple harvesting study in Japan will lead me to be here right now, here in the United States.
Yeah. So connect that dot for us. So you end up in the U.S., and then how did you end up working here at NNU?
I ended up finishing my stuff there, and I worked for a little bit in a university in Sapporo. Or before that, so I could really relate to the speaker who didn't come here today.
Oh, yeah, from Africa, yeah.
So I went to my first arrival here in the United States. One was in 2001 or 2000. That was in July. And I presented my research on apple harvesting. One of the professors in Florida who was doing orange robotic harvesting saw my presentation and said, do you want to work for me? So I said, yeah, of course. So we did all the paperwork, and then the plane hit New York.
Yeah, 9/11 happened.
And my visa was denied, so I know the feeling.
Yeah.
So I wasn't able to come here. And then I continued working in that university for another year. And lo and behold, that same professor visited the university in Japan.
Oh, wow.
So we met again, and so I asked him, hey, do you still have that opportunity for me to work in Japan? And he told me that no, I have no money. Another university from the same university came. This time it's a Muslim professor.
Okay.
And he told me, hey, I have money for you to come with me to work in Japan. And I've known that other professor who told me no, he is a Christian.
Okay. Yeah.
Very devoted Christian. So I sent him, hey, this Muslim professor is giving me a job. The next day I received an email from him. He said, I have a job for you. So I
You kind of put them in competition against each other.
That was not my goal.
Right, sure. Sorry. Didn't mean to, I don't mean to imply anything.
So I went to work with him. And
Okay.
then
So you went to Florida?
to Florida.
Okay.
University of Florida, go Gators.
Go Gators.
So I worked there for 5 years. As I worked there, I was also, because he was a very devoted Christian, he has his own home church, and he introduced me to Jesus. And we had Bible study in his office because it wasn't allowed in a state university.
Sure.
So we would close the door and both of us will have Bible study, one-on-one. He was trying to convert me because he knew that I am Catholic. Because I'm just a regular Catholic, Sunday Catholic. I go to church and that's it, you know. But as I was reading the Bible and knowing more about Jesus, I love to go to the Mass more. Because I felt like the Bible comes alive when I go to Mass. When they start the Mass, when the priest will say, "May the Lord be with you." At first, you know, when I was still like, I thought it was just like made up words.
Yeah, just reading from a script.
Yes. But it was like Saint Paul coming alive, greeting you. Because every time he writes his letter to these groups of communities, he starts with, "May the Lord be with you." And I just love going to Mass because it's like my date with Jesus. I found what Pastor Dave talked about, I found yada.
Oh, last week when David Busick was here and was talking about getting to know God intimately. Yeah.
And that's why connecting the dots, studying engineering, studying about Jesus, and he brought me here.
So yeah, you ended up at NNU a few years later. Was there any connection to this Christian school in Idaho that you had made before, or was it just the time perfectly kind of met with your availability?
I think it was just the time that they were looking for a handsome mechanical engineering professor. I was available.
Nice. They got their guy.
And it just...
I love that. So I know that you have a lot of deep love for the ways that your work connects with your faith, and the ways that, and I know you have projects in the work to do some of these things, to create devotionals and to think about those things. Maybe you could spend a little time telling us about some of the ways that's shaped your thinking about what you do and why that kind of project is important to you.
Sure, but let me ask you this question first. Have you studied physics?
No. Oh. No, I'm sorry. I took physics in high school.
You took physics in high school.
I did.
So
I took AP physics. I felt pretty good about that.
Perfect.
F equals MA, baby. Right?
That's where I'm going.
Oh, man. Sorry, I didn't mean to spoil it. Go ahead.
All right. So when I interviewed here in 2011, there was this interview with the set of faculty from the Department of Science. And then there's also another set of faculty from outside science. And talking with this faculty, they tell me that for MWF classes, they teach, it's a 55-minute class, and 5 minutes is for devotionals. They teach 50 minutes, and the 5 minute they reserve for devotionals to talk about Jesus. And so I started here and preparing for my class, and it takes me more time to prepare for my devotional than for my class. And I would search the internet. I was hoping that ChatGPT was alive back then, because I could have just said, "Hey, ChatGPT, give me a devotional today." So like 3 months, I complained to my wife. I told my wife, maybe this is just, I just work here for a year. It's just too hard for me to talk about Jesus, this all devotional thing. Until one day I was preparing for this class. It's called Engineering Statics. The book was right in front of me, and you know that we can pray everywhere, right? So I complained to God. I said, "Hey, Lord, this is just too much. I couldn't do this anymore." And he kind of told me, like, "What is in your hands?" And it was the statics book. And he told me to throw it in the ground, and it became a snake. No, it didn't. I'm glad that you're having fun, guys. But this is a true story. It didn't turn into a snake, but what came out was this equation. The summation, because statics is like this. We are studying this table, and it's not moving. All the forces that are acting on this table are equal. And the net force is 0. So I look at that equation, summation of forces is equal to 0, and I was just looking at it because God was telling me, use that. Don't search the internet, don't use other stuff. Use engineering to talk about me. I was looking at that equation, summation of force equals 0, and I thought that is the equation of our salvation. Do you want me to derive it?
Yeah.
Do you have a whiteboard?
Oh, I wish we did.
Okay. But it's because, I will ask you a question now. The weight of Jesus minus the weight of your sin is?
0.
Perfect.
Yes.
Because weight is a force. The weight of Jesus minus the weight of your sin is 0. No matter how big or small your sin is, it's wiped out. It is 0. But do you know it's only true for 3 days? Because summation of force equals 0 is a corollary equation to the actual second law of motion, which is F equals ma. Summation of forces equals mass times acceleration. If there is no acceleration, then it is 0. It's not moving, right?
Right.
However, we have to take into account that the weight of Jesus is much more powerful than your sin. That the mass of Jesus' body accelerated to heaven. Does that make sense? People don't.
I think they're with you.
He resurrected. He went to heaven.
Yeah.
Because his weight is much more powerful than your sin.
It couldn't hold him down.
No.
I love that.
And so from there on, it's like, you see that one? Seek first the kingdom. That is seeking the kingdom in small steps. And once you try to seek the kingdom in small steps, because Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed. It's small. He doesn't expect you to find big stuff, man. Just try small steps. And once you get a taste of it, you'll be like a woman at the well who will say, I want more.
Yeah. That's so good.
So if you want to hear more of the engineering parables, come to my class.
That sounds pretty great. Would you please just think about, you've got students here who are in the middle of their semester. They're getting, you probably are seeing it in class, they're getting kind of tired. They're thinking about where they're going to get their motivation to finish the semester from. What would you like to just say to these students, both now in the semester, but also just advice for them as they move forward in life? What do you think is important for them to know and believe?
First off, I believe that you are here, not only the students, but the staff, the faculty. You are all here because God wants you to be here now. And while you are here, I want, just like what Grant said when we began this one, can you close your eyes for a while? Everyone, just close your eyes. Don't look at me. I know I'm handsome, but just close your eyes. And just imagine God asking you, what is in your hands? I know some of you have your computers working on your assignment in Canvas. Work on it, but just imagine God asking you, what's in your hands? And make the best of it. Do the best that you can. And secondly, try to seek the kingdom in small steps. Seek the simple joy that brings a smile to your face. And we can slowly build a small kingdom of heaven here at NNU. Thank you very much, Grant.
Thank you. Would you all give Dr. Bulanon a huge round of applause? Super. Stupendous. Thank you so much.
You are very welcome. And have a good week, guys.
Hey, can I ask you one more question before we
Sure.
end? If someone were interested in having some Filipino food around here in the Boise area, is there anywhere to go? Anywhere that you recommend?
There is a new Filipino food truck along Caldwell Boulevard, just next to that Red Dot car wash. It's also beside the. If you have gone to the Thai food truck, it's very close to the
And what
place.
would you recommend a certain dish if someone were going to try Filipino food for the first time?
They will always have generic Filipino food, but there's always rice.
Rice time, everyone. Hey, thank you so much. Would you all have a wonderful rest of your day and have a great week and go in his peace into your week.